Hello, my friends, and happy Thursday. It's a beautiful stormy day here in Wisconsin. We had an exciting little storm, a little summer afternoon storm, and now it's beautiful again. And we are going to make the Santa Fe Harmony necklace today. I have it right here in front of me. And I'm very excited about this necklace, actually. I'm so excited to share this with you because this literally has all my favorite techniques in it. Well, maybe not all. I have many favorite techniques. But let's first start with how gorgeous are these stones. So I started with the stones and everything else just kind of grew out of that. So this is going to be a super fun little project. It's most definitely very rustic, chic, boho, whatever you want to call it, but it just feels so good on.
Katie says, good evening all.
Hi, Katie. Good evening.
Barb says, good evening, everyone.
And hello, Barb.
Ellen says, hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen.
Linda says, hello.
Hello, Linda.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone. Happy steamy Thursday.
Hi, Fonda. Yes, very steamy. Happy humid Thursday to all of you guys. It's humid, but you know, I don't know. I am just a summer person, and I guess I just kind of embrace it all. Just wait till winter. I'll be whining about the cold. So,
Pammy J says, good Thursday evening. Those big stones are awesome.
Thank you so much, Pammy J. I'm so glad you like these. I am so into these stones in the first place, and I kept thinking I really want to make something with them, and I'm so glad I finally have.
Ellie says, I have my computer hooked up to the big screen TV. Can see all those details even better tonight.
Oh, yay! Thank you so much, Ellie, for sharing that.
Patricia says, hello all.
Hi, Patricia.
And Sabrina says, hello.
And hello, Sabrina. Well, I'm so glad that you guys are here and you're joining me for this project. And so just a little bit about some of the techniques. So we are going to start with one of my favorite knotting techniques for leather, which is a barrel knots. Barrel knots are great fun. It's a really good way to connect two points together. But in this case, actually, I am going to show you. So the focal point pieces are top drilled, and they're also quite thick. They have this really nice weight to them, and they're a thicker stone. It's almost like somebody took two cabochons and put them together, except of course they're carved out of one stone. They're absolutely stunning. They're high polished and they are just gorgeous. Every piece is absolutely beautiful. But this is where I'm going. Often when you have a stone like this that's a little thicker, it's a little bit difficult to find a good way to connect to something else, right? Like a necklace. Because if we were going to try to connect this with a jump ring, we would require such a large jump ring that it would look a little bit clunky. So I really did not want to go there. And at the same time, because I really love these type of links for bracelets, sometimes it's literally part of the same bracelet. Sometimes it's an extra little link that maybe connects to one side of the clasp. And so it's very often, it's just like a fun little detail that's more of a decorative detail. And this time, it's not just a decorative detail. It's in addition to being decorative and fun, it's also a really good practical way to connect to our next component. So I love that idea. The other thing too is that if you look a little closer, you will see that the loop is not a single loop like I normally make, but rather a double loop. And this was a choice, this was a design choice, which not only helps us to connect and pretty much keep the stone from twisting, because you know how sometimes we use double jump rings, and that in some cases helps keep our stones straight. It helps to prevent it from twisting. But in this case, it's that, plus also I think visually having two strands of leather is kind of fun. So anyway, that is how I came up with the idea. And then of course, color-wise, you know, I like to talk a little bit about color and my choices of color. So one of my favorite palettes is, I'm not going to call it like a true Southwest palette, but it's most definitely a nod to the Southwest palette. And so my first colorway, the one with the lapis stone, this is definitely a really big nod to the Southwest. And this I called Painted Desert. So there's some really iconic stones in this. So of course we start out with that really, really vibrant lapis. It's just so gorgeous. And then I have always loved lapis and turquoise. So lapis and turquoise is such an iconic combo. It dates back to the ancient Egyptians. And you see the lapis turquoise combination in so many different styles of jewelry because it just works. And then if we want to add just a little fun, a little color to this, of course, I love carnelian. So a little carnelian, a little bit of amethyst. Here's another little amethyst bead and a pearl to just kind of lighten it a little. Because lately I really find that you add a little white pearl to your pieces and it just brings it to life. It's contrasting, it's fun. And then of course, there is color that comes from the leather itself. So I choose the leather I use very carefully because, you know, it all has to work and it has to work with that same palette. And, well, we'll get to our moonlit forest in a little bit and we'll talk about the colors for that. It's a little bit more, actually, it's a lot more neutral. But again, there's definitely color here. So we'll get to that in a little bit. In the meantime, we are just going to get started. So we are going, oh yes, before I start, I just want to show you that, so since our very first step is going to be simply connecting our beautiful gemstone piece to the ring, what we're going to do is just think about how long do we want to make this piece. So as I said, it's not just a knot, it's not just a barrel knot, it's a connector. So if you take a look at my two colorways, you can see that actually the crystal drop is quite a bit larger than the amethyst drop. Those are the drops I happen to have. They're both absolutely gorgeous, but one is definitely longer than the other. So I feel like with the longer drop, we kind of want a little bit more space between the metal ring and the beautiful gemstone pendant. But also, it's really up to you. It's a creative choice. So think about the length you're going to have so we can vary this. We can make it longer, shorter. And now we are just going to get started.
Nirka says good evening from hot and steamy Chicago.
Oh, hi, Nirka from Chicago. And your weather must be very, very similar to ours.
Sarah says hello, very pretty.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you like it. So in the meantime, I'm just cutting myself a piece of wire, which you guys will just get a piece of wire in your kit. So here's my little 28 gauge wire. We're going to need that in just a little bit. Okay, guys, so we're going to put the leather through our focal point piece. Oops.
Connie says good evening, everyone. Running late tonight.
Hi, Connie. Good evening. I'm so glad you're joining us today.
Katie S says, I was going to say that combination of stones along with the gold to me says Egyptian.
Yes, it's very Egyptian, you know, and there is a little bit of gold in all of our focal, well, actually, no, I take it back. Not in all of our focal point pieces, but in all of our lapis pendants, because very often when you have lapis, it sort of comes along with some beautiful pyrite inclusions. So it's not actual gold, it's fool's gold, but you know, I'm a fool for fool's gold. I think it's gorgeous. Okay, guys, so now I'm going to, so far all I have done is just put the leather through the lapis piece. So before I do anything else, let me make this very clear, because those of you who are going to be buying the kits in the Etsy shop, and both of these are already in the Etsy shop. So this is what you need to know. When you get your kit, you will get 2 different types of leather. So I hope that the camera picks it up really well. So we have 1 millimeter and 1.5 millimeter leather. So the piece that's going to serve as our bail is the 1 millimeter leather. So our connector, in a way, is also our bail, right? So we're about to make that with our beautiful, very supple 1 millimeter leather. And I think I'm going to go just a little bit longer on the bail or the connector for this. And so I'm putting, as you can see, my, so I'm just holding onto this with my fingers. And so the short end, oh, it's probably about 1.5 inches. And you have plenty of room, you know, plenty of wiggle room. So you can just kind of play with it and see what length you like. So once you figure out the length, just take your long piece, put it through this metal component or metal ring, and now we are going to form a figure 8. So this is one of those things where you're going to be like, oh, I kind of wish I had a third hand. But, you know, it's doable. It's doable just with 2 hands. And if you need to ask somebody to hold on to it, that's okay too. Actually, you know what? If I would have thought about it, maybe I would have grabbed a bead holder and just clipped this part. But as it is, I'm just going to hold on to this with my hands. And now I'm going through that hole in my gemstone one more time. And now I'm going to form another figure 8 yet through the metal ring. So this is what we have. We have a double figure 8.
Pammy J says the length of the connector from the focal makes a lot of sense. Thanks for pointing that out.
Oh, thank you so much, Pammy J. Yeah, so definitely if you are making the moonlit forest one, so to me this is kind of ethereal with the crystal. It's a beautiful faceted crystal drop, plus on the other side right here we have the copper edged pearl, and together I think it's just such a wonderful colorway. And so yes, so because the drop is a little longer, I definitely recommend that you make this connector a little longer. And you know what? Maybe in a minute I will measure it. Okay, guys, and so now, oh, and you know, I just realized I forgot my other glue, but that's okay. We'll just ask Tony to get our GS cement in just a moment. Okay, so you can see I have evened out the figure eight so that each figure eight is about the same size. And now I'm going to take my little 28 gauge wire, and right in the center of what's going to be my figure eights, I am going to wrap it around just like a couple of little coils. You really don't need a whole lot.
Patricia says, gotta go, looks great.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and enjoy whatever you're doing.
Bobby says, good evening.
Hi, Bobby, and good evening to you, my dear.
Trudy says, hello, hi, everyone.
Hello, Trudy.
Jane says hello. Jane D says hello from North Georgia. Beautiful vocals.
Oh, thank you so much, Jane.
Fonda says, I just ordered the lapis kit.
Yay, thank you so much, Fonda. All right, guys, so you can see I just wrapped just 3 coils. Just 2 or 3 coils is plenty. And now, just with my hands, I am going to make a little twist, you know, like a little twist on your bread bag, not like one goes around the other, just a little twist. You really don't need a whole lot of wire for this. I'm going to use my flat nose pliers and maybe give it a little extra tightening. Don't tighten it too much because you will most likely break it. But of course, the good news is that you have enough wire to restart with. And I just clipped off the excess wire. I am not going to need it anymore because all I need is just to create that little twist, tuck it in, and that's it. So now, before we make the barrel knot, I am going to ask Tony to get the GS cement from my desk, and we will continue. So while he's getting that, we'll just kind of chat a little bit. So everybody makes their barrel knots a little bit differently. And what I found is that if you do have that little bit of wire, it just makes it so much easier. So the way I do it is I let the wire hold the component together as I make the barrel knot. And the other thing is I do like to glue it in place so that it doesn't slide, it doesn't open up, and you cannot, when it's all said and done, you can actually not see that I have a little bit of wire inside the knot. So the whole point is that it holds really, really well. It's not going to come apart, and the wire is invisible. So, so Tony just brought me the glue, and we're going to continue.
Amy says, hi, everyone.
Hi, Amy. And I'm so glad you joined us. Okay, guys, so the other thing I'm going to do before making the barrel knot is I'm going to cut off the excess leather. So remember our little short ends we had? So we don't actually need it anymore. So we are going to cut most of it off. I left maybe about 3 millimeters past where I wrapped it with the wire. And now we are going to use a little straw. And so we're just going to put the straw right over the wrap. And we are going to start coiling right over the straw. And I am going from the stone to the ring, but however it works out, really. There's no right or wrong way. You can go from the ring to the stone. However it works out is correct. Okay, so once I have, I don't know, how many coils do we have? This is a lot of coils, you guys. This is like 7 coils. I don't know, anywhere between, say, 5 and 7 coils is good. So now when I feel like it's done, I'm just feeding the end of my leather right into that little straw. And we're going to pull out the end on the other side. But now we're also going to, while we're holding onto the barrel knot, just hold onto it with your fingers. Now I'm pulling the whole thing. I'm pulling the straw and the leather all at the same time. So we have our barrel knot. It's still a little bit loose. You can see it's still a little bit loose just from the straw being inside of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just fixing it. It was a little twisted. And so now I'm going to start gently pulling on that tail as I'm trying to keep the knot in place. So did you see it? It slid up a little bit, and then that little wire was exposed just for a second. And then I just moved it right back. Not a problem. So just keep moving it right over that little wire coil. And that's it. So once you have tightened it, all there's left to do is just glue the knot in place. And I always like to have a little piece of paper right underneath where I'm gluing. And it has that nice little applicator, but somebody actually doing one of these videos, somebody gave me a little tip, which is brilliant, you guys. So whoever gave me the tip, thank you again. So instead of using the applicator, I have been using that little stopper. You can see it's like a little teeny needle. And I just put some glue on my finger, which is why it's so nice to have that little piece of paper. So that little tiny needle is really just perfect to use as an applicator. So I'm just going between those leather coils. Oh, and I glued my finger again. It's going to be one of those days. Well, it's not a problem. Honestly, it's not a big deal.
Allie says the straw is genius, so much more of a challenge without it.
Yes, Allie, you're so right. And I wish I could claim it, but I can't. It's not like I came up with it. But whoever did, thank you very much, because it's such a really, really good way to do it. Okay, so I'm just going to put the little applicator right back in. And now we're going to put all the coils together. And by morning, it will be nice and dry. And if you feel like you need to spread a couple more coils and put a little more glue, you most certainly can. Okay, so I'm just putting everything together as tightly as I can. And now we really do not need this long end anymore. So we are just going to cut it off, and there we go. We have this nice little bail. So follow all the steps. However, gluing your fingers is optional. You don't have to do that. That's not really part of the process, although it can be. Okay, guys, so now that we have attached our main focal point piece, we're going to start working on our secondary focal points. And our secondary focal points are going to be these 2 wonderful gemstone beads that just kind of contrast our main focal point and really make it shine, kind of bring it to life. You know, I feel like, you know, by itself, this pendant is gorgeous, but then you put a little bit more color next to it and it's just even more amazing. And so right now I am just putting my 2 secondary focal point pieces on these very long ball pins. And so next we are going to make a nice large loop, and it's going to be large enough to go right over this ring. And so as usual, whenever we make any kind of a wrapped loop, we're going to bend our wire. And this is quite a long wire, so definitely long enough to make that large loop, and even make it an organic wrap if we so choose. So I'm just making a nice 90-degree angle.
Betty says, save the schnibbles.
Yes, absolutely. Save the leather schnibbles for sure.
And Lori says, good evening, Irina and Tony.
Good evening, Lori, and thank you so much for joining us. Okay, guys, so you can use your round nose pliers. In fact, you know what? For one of them, I will use my round nose pliers, and for the other, I will use my bail making pliers. And maybe I'll do the bail making pliers first. So if you're using the bail making pliers for this, I like the medium bail making pliers, and I will be using the larger side of the medium bail making pliers. If you don't have a medium bail making pliers, that's okay. We can still do this. So this is actually going to give me quite a large loop, almost a bit too large. And you know, if you feel like it's a little too large, we can make it smaller in just a moment. I'm just going to leave it right here. And this way too, I'm going to show you how to make it smaller. If you don't have a medium-sized bail making pliers, everybody has a slightly different round nose pliers, but the chances are that if you make the loop at the very end of that nose, it will give us a really nice size loop. So let's compare, shall we? So definitely one is larger than the other. So what do we do when one is larger? It's not a problem. We'll just make one of these a little smaller. So first of all, I'm going to just straighten it. And secondly, I can just use my flat nose pliers to just push one side of the loop in a little bit, and all of a sudden it is about the same as the other.
Allie says a smaller stone with the leather barrel knot would be a cool ceiling fan pole.
It would indeed. So I made it about the same size. So now I'm just going to make sure that it's nicely centered. And also, it's always a good thing to make sure that our wire is sticking out at a 90-degree angle, right? So these two wires should intersect at something that's very close to a 90-degree angle. And now we're just going to attach one of our new drops that we're making to one side of the ring, and the other is going to be on the other side of the lapis focal point piece. So I am making this into an organically wrapped loop. And so what that means is that not only did I wrap from the loop to the bead once, but then I went on top of that coil and wrapped in the opposite direction from the bead right back to the loop. And now I'm just going to squeeze that little end in a little bit so that it does not poke out at all. And now we're going to do the same thing with our beautiful turquoise copper edged bead. So I should probably open up the loop just a little bit because it's being a little stubborn. Okay, so I opened up the loop and there we go. It just slides right over. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how I make that organically wrapped loop. So we're just going to wrap right into that little opening. It's exactly how you make a regular wrapped loop. So we start by wrapping into the opening, but then instead of just cutting off the wire there, we're going to turn around and go in the opposite direction towards the loop. And in fact, the way I like to do it is I actually go right over the base of the loop because I like the look, and then I also like that this is a good way to reinforce our component. So especially if you're working with skinnier wire, this is a really good way to keep the wire from bending and eventually breaking. So there we go. So you can decide if you like it a little longer or a little shorter. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to measure both just to give you a little bit of an idea.
Allie is wondering, is the silver ring part of a larger toggle clasp?
Yes, it was part of a larger toggle clasp, but I really liked it for this project. So obviously we're not using the toggle, but it's okay because, you know, we'll save those toggles and one day we will use it for something else that is just as exciting. So, and you know, I just want you to know they will not be wasted. One of these days you'll see them in a bracelet. Okay, guys, so the shorter bail is exactly 1 inch long, and the longer one is, oh wow, this turned out well, is exactly, well, maybe just a hair under 1.5 inches. So you decide. In fact, tell me, what do you think? Do you like it a little shorter or do you like it a little longer? Or let's live on the wild side. Would you want to see it somewhere in between? Okay, so next I'm going to decide on this little component. So you see this little bead that's just sticking out. I like that little touch of asymmetry where we have beads just kind of knotted into place, and there's just one little bead that's not exactly in line with all of its friends. So it just kind of wants to stick out. It's maybe another little focal point. And so for that, we are going to identify a couple of beads that are drilled with just a standard size hole. So you have exactly 2 beads that are drilled small in this kit. That, of course, is other than the focal point beads, which are also drilled closer to the standard size hole, which is about 1 millimeter or sometimes a little smaller. So one of these beads is going to be this guy, which kind of sticks out. And then the other bead is going to be at the end of our extender chain. So it is entirely up to you which one is which. Well, I know which one I like to be in the front of the necklace because of course this guy is going to end up in the back of the necklace. So this is my little turquoise bead, which is going to be right there. And before I start working on the necklace, I'm going to make a wrapped loop so that it can be knotted into our necklace in between the other beads. And so I am going to make a wrapped loop, and this does not have to be very large, but it definitely needs to be large enough to fit on our leather. So just keep in mind, this is going to be, the leather is 1.5 millimeters. So we need to make that opening at least large enough so that it can go on 1.5 millimeter leather. And how do we know? Well, we have the leather right here, so we can just try, and clearly it works. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it.
Jane D loves it.
Thank you so much, Jane.
Allie says both are great. I like how the dangles have more room to move on the longer one.
Oh, thank you so much, Allie. You know, I have to say, I kind of like the longer one as well. I don't know, there's something about it that's just a little bit more free-spirited, right? And so I just made my little dangle, and I'm going to pinch the end of the wire right in. And we'll just set this aside for now. So in the meantime, we have our long piece of leather, and we're going to find the center, because of course we're going to want to center this, and just go ahead and string right through that loop, and there we are. And this is just going to be a regular overhand knot. It's not a surgeon's knot. It's just a regular overhand knot, because I tried it both ways and I ended up liking it with just an overhand knot, because the other knot seemed to be a little sloppy. So this is how I make it. Just, you know, just like that. Both ends go into that double loop, and you tighten it. The only thing that I do, that's maybe something that I pay attention to, is I don't let the leather ends cross, right? So I want the leather ends just kind of flat, which is why I held it like this, very, like this, very flat, right? So as long as you don't let them cross, this is the knot that you're going to get. And at this point, we are just going to start knotting our beads into place. So you have a lot of fun little beads to play with here. And maybe I'll start with this one this time. Maybe a couple of little spacers. And we're just going to start by knotting our leather. And this time I am making a surgeon's knot, which means that once you start that first loop, you put your leather end right back into the loop. And when you start tightening the knot, it is going to form a figure 8. So again, we have a figure 8 in here. So you can see the figure 8. And if you see that, it means you're doing it right. It's a very, very easy knot. I don't think you can go wrong really with whatever you do. And so you do have some fun little spacers. You have some spacers that look kind of pinched like this. You have some spacers that are actually 6/0 seed beads, metal seed beads, that is. And I really like working with these because they fit onto our leather very, very easily. And we can just create whatever little pattern we want at this point. And once we're done, we're going to knot that into place by placing a second knot. So it's essentially like this little group is going to be framed by the two surgeon's knots.
Charlene is wondering about how long is the necklace leather?
Oh, that's a good question, Charlene. I think I knew this when I made it. I know it's very long. I think, what is the maximum?
40, I think.
40 plus. I think the maximum length is 40 plus inches. So the one that I would make for myself, in fact, one of these is going to be for me. So the one that I would make for myself, because I'm not a very tall person, and because there is a large dangling piece, right? So that adds to the length. So I would probably make mine about 32, 34 inches. If you're tall and willowy or just taller than me, which is nearly everyone, just make it however you like it, but you can make it up to 40 inches, or no, 40 plus inches. And that does not include this part. Okay, guys, and then it looks like I just placed a single bead on the other side, which I like that balance, right? Because, you know, when you design jewelry, we talk about the visual weight. And when we have a darker bead that is not transparent, that is always going to have more visual weight than our lighter colored beads. And so this is really going to balance our silver beads very nicely. So I'm just going to have this one single bead right here. And again, it's going to sit between two surgeon's knots. Oops, and okay, so that knot just kind of jumped right over the bead. We want to keep it on one side of the bead like that. And so that's starting to look pretty fun. And then so as you see right here, I created this little segment of beads, and so this is still very much in front of our necklace, where it's going to be pretty close to the focal point. So, and this is going to accentuate the focal point by picking up one of the colors, the turquoise to be specific. And so I am going to want this pretty close to the focal point, not too close. I do want another color between the two turquoise components, but I feel that this is a really good place to put it. And let's see, we are going to use maybe a couple more spacers, seed beads, whatever you decide. You can pretty much remix these beads in whatever order you find pleasing. And I'm just stringing in kind of a somewhat random order. Maybe I'll use this guy next. Okay, so there's just a little bit of a difference in the thickness of our leather between this colorway, the painted desert colorway, and the other colorway, which is the moonlit forest. So one thing I'm going to point out, this little bead, which I really love, it's like a little rondelle with dots. I wasn't able to use that with the leather in the other colorway, so I substituted it with this little, almost like a floral rondelle, and that's also very, very cute. So that's really only going that's really going to be the only bead that does not match from one kit to the next. Okay, and I think I'll finish this little group with another 6/0 bead, and so this is what it looks like. That's pretty fun. No, you know what? I feel like I need one more. You know, when you're stringing, the piece will just kind of tell you what it needs. And I feel like if I put this other pinched spacer, it will make me happier. And it definitely does. So I will tie another knot.
Trudy says the leather at the bottom of the necklace was how long when you started? I missed that at the beginning.
Oh, that's a good question, Trudy. That was 18 inches, and you're not going to use the entire 18 inches. However, it makes it more convenient to do it if you start with a slightly longer piece. But once I used my 18-inch piece of leather, I'm just going to show you how much I cut off. So I ended up cutting off about 6 inches. So that means that the knot itself takes about 12 inches.
Ellie says, any suggestions for making the surgeon's knots that are consistently close to the beads? I can make the knots, but sometimes have to reposition as I work.
Gotcha. You know, just the way I do this, let's make one more, shall we? So just the way I do it is, okay, so this one is not on the other side of the bead. So let's make the first knot, and then I'll kind of talk you through the process as I make the second knot. So I think, what should we put next? Maybe our pearl. I like the pearl a lot. I think it's just that one single white pearl brings so much light into the necklace. Okay, so as you are tying the knot on the other side of the bead, this is what I do. I position my knot so it's right next to the bead in the first place. So it's not like I'm going to have to move it towards the bead. I'm just going to keep it right at the bead. So I just put it through the loop one time, and here it goes through the loop for the second time. And the entire time it's just kind of hanging out right at the bead. And so when I tighten the knot, it's still at the bead, so it's very, very simple. Did that make sense? I hope it did, Allie.
Fonda's wondering, how long is the leather between the bead sections?
Oh, good question, Fonda. The answer is pretty much as long as you want. So mine are quite inconsistent. It's pretty much whatever I feel like at the time. So like this little segment, if I measure in between the knots, it's just under 1 inch, right? But if I measure a longer segment, and I have longer segments, shorter segments, so this segment is about 1.5 inches. So I would say maybe anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches, really whatever you feel like. And then as I get to the end of the necklace, so let me just make this very clear. So this part right here, the part without any beads on it, that is the part that's actually going to be going around our necks. So I love comfort. I buy my clothes for comfort and shoes, and why should my jewelry be any different? So in order for your necklace to be really nice and comfortable, to feel good around your neck, just leave the beads out. Don't put the beads around the back of your neck. And the other thing too, if you like layering your jewelry like I do, the less stuff you have going on in the back of your neck, in the back of your necklace, right? The easier it is to layer your jewelry. So with all that being said, so I have a segment of 5 inches at the back, and let's see, how long is this one? And this one is closer to 6 inches. So 5 inches, 6 inches, anywhere around there would be great.
Ellie says, thanks for showing the knots again.
Oh, my pleasure, Ellie.
And Amy says, I like the spacing that is asymmetrical.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And you know, it's just about just do whatever feels right at the time. So once you get to the point where you're just about done, so here through the magic of Facebook Live, of course, I have this piece almost finished. So I'm going to show you how to actually finish it. And we are going to use these little leather crimps, which I absolutely adore. And I use them in so many of my leather projects. And so I'm getting my other glue ready. This is a super new glue. And you could probably use the GS cement, but it's a bit more gooey, which I don't like for this type of a project. So before we do anything, we're just going to make sure that our crimp fits really easily on our leather. And now we are going to put a little bit of the super new glue on the leather and immediately slide the crimp right over it. And the reason I'm saying immediately is because super new glue dries rather quickly. So once you put a little glue on it, you really don't want to go looking for those leather crimps. I'm just removing a little bit. That was a bit much. So you don't want to be answering your phone. Just go ahead and put that crimp on, and then you want to only crimp the very center of the leather crimp. As you see, it consists of 3 parts, and the 2 on the ends, right? The 2 kind of frame the part that actually crimps. So you can see my chain nose pliers in the center of the crimp, and I'm only squeezing that part. So between that nice little squeeze and the glue, this is going to hold so amazingly well.
Kathy C says, with the longer one, you could have added a spacer bead or 2 on one of the dangles.
On one of the dangles. Yes, absolutely. And you do have some spacers, and just be creative. You can most certainly add spacers. You can do it however you want to. There's so much room for interpretation.
Betty says, just a few pearls give a touch of elegance to anything.
You bet. I completely agree. And in this colorway, I promised to talk a little bit about this colorway. So these are really some of my favorite things in the world. I love these pearls. Of course, I love the turquoise too. The turquoise that is copper edged, and I use it in so many things. But I think these pearls are so elegant, and they're so organic. And the really elegant organic pearl opposite of that very structured, very beautifully faceted teardrop, quartz teardrop, is absolutely gorgeous. And of course, the choice of leather for this one is black. I just went with our basic natural black color because it shows off our whites and our silvers so well. And because, of course, there's so many more white pearls, there's a little faceted grayish pearl right here. I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but it is absolutely stunning. And so again, against that black leather, I think it's so beautiful. It's definitely a little bit more neutral than the painted desert variation. This can be worn with nearly everything. So it has a little bit of that subtle green that comes from moss agate, and so hence moonlit forest, because to me, between the pearls, of course, are so representative of the moon, and then a little bit of the moss agate is so beautiful, and so it just looks like a moonlit forest to me. Okay, guys, and now we are going to attach our extender chain, as well as our, oh, here, I already grabbed the jump ring. I lost track of my jump rings for a second. So I'm going to attach one to one side, the other to the other side. And normally, if it's a one-sided pendant, I talk about definitely putting the lobster clasp on your dominant side. And of course, the extender chain normally goes on your non-dominant side. However, because this necklace is such that it can flip-flop and both sides are so very beautiful, and there's really not a front and a back. Did you hear that little click? That's a good little click. It means that our jump ring is nicely closed. And that reminds me, let's talk a little bit about the jump ring. So as we open our jump ring, we have our chain nose and our flat nose pliers, or if you have two chain noses, if that's your preference, that's okay too. We open the jump ring this way, like a little door. So in other words, we open it without making its diameter larger. We connect whatever we need to connect. In this case, it is an extender chain. And again, we're looking for that little click, which you just heard. So that just means that the jump ring is well closed and it's not going to come off. We're not going to lose our necklace. And our last little touch, only because this is not a commercial extender chain. This is just a little segment of chain, and it doesn't have that little bauble. And I love having that little bauble because it just makes everything nicely finished. So I am going to connect this little lapis cube to the end of the extender chain. So we're just going to make a little wrapped loop and connect, and that's going to be that.
Allie says the leather and the pearls on the black necklace make the leather dressy. Both necklaces are lovely.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I agree with you. There's something, I'm not going to say that this is any sort of a formal necklace, but definitely the two, if you were to compare the two, the one with black leather is definitely more formal looking. Maybe just a little bit more elegant between the leather and the pearls, whereas the Painted Desert one is more fun. There's still that fun, I would say it's kind of this, a touch of rustic elegance. And I do like that very much. I also love that rusty brown leather. I use it in so many different things. It's just a beautiful color, especially with fall coming soon. And I just finished my little extender chain, and that's it. That is really all there is to making this necklace. So what do you guys think? Was this easy? I mean, I think it's very easy. And really, if you just follow all the steps, this is such a fun necklace to make. And absolutely, you can interpret it your own way. And you can change the order of the beads. You can pretty much, you know, do a little remix. Obviously, within reason, you only have so many beads to complete the necklace, but you can most definitely remix. And if you feel like adding, oh, and you know what, actually, I kind of forgot, I did have a couple of these tiny little, well, they're not really tiny, they're 11-0 seed beads right there. So I actually didn't even end up using them, but I included them just in case if you want to use them, say right here at the top of a bead or at the bottom of a bead, you can. So I'm not quite sure exactly what I was thinking, but let's see. Did I use them anywhere? I think I did somewhere. Oh, yes. No, I have no idea where I used them, but you certainly can.
Bobby says, I really, really like the pendant.
Yay, thank you so much, Bobby.
Patty G says, so pretty, can't decide what color.
Well, Patty, there's always the choice of both. But if you don't want both, you're just going to have to make a decision. Okay, guys, so all good things must come to an end, right? And we finished our project, and now you know exactly how to do it. So I'm going to give you a little preview. Tomorrow, we have a really fun shopping event. I'm going to be featuring Swarovski. In fact, it's going to be a whole Swarovski extravaganza. Or I will say the beginning of the Swarovski extravaganza, part 1. And then I'm also bringing back some of our favorite stone pendants, and you know what those are. It's the Quantum Quattro, which we literally sold out. Some people didn't get one because they didn't say I want one fast enough. So this is going to be your second chance for the Quantum Quattro and the Larimar pendants and the citrine pendants and the druzy pendants. So all of those are the favorites, and they sold out the first time I showed them. So this is going to be our second time showing them. And so that's tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And then next Thursday, I am going to be making the boho bloom bracelet, and this is what the boho bloom bracelet looks like. So I love these little blossoms. So we are actually going to be making this little sparkly blossom, and then we're going to use it as a little clasp or button for our bracelets. And so this is next Thursday. And I hope you join me for this. But I have to tell you something very important. So there's no shopping video next Friday. So there's a shopping video tomorrow, which I suppose that's next Friday. So tomorrow there's a shopping video at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time on the Eclectica page. And then next Friday, which is actually September 1st, there's no video. So we will be taking a short break. And then I will come back September 21st and 22nd, I believe. So that is our plan, you guys. So we're taking a short break just because we're going on vacation, Tony and I. And then as soon as we come back, we will resume with the videos. So we still have one more tutorial, this guy, before we leave. Okay, what do you think? I believe we covered it all. And I certainly hope you join me for the shopping event tomorrow. In the meantime, have a wonderful and creative evening. And thank you so much for all of your comments and questions, suggestions. All that is really, really good stuff, ladies. So keep it coming, please. In the meantime, I will see you tomorrow morning.
Allie says, so cool. Another remix of your fun bracelet, the boho one.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Allie. This is definitely a remix, but with another little twist. This is a different little component. We have not done this before. So this will just be really, really fun, and you won't believe how incredibly simple this is.
Amy says, awesome. Enjoy your vacation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you everyone again for watching. Have a great evening.